my place was on fire. By the time I got over there, half a block was burnt down. And we didn't have a dime's worth of insurance. So we had to start all over again. And I didn't waste any time. I got a contractor, and I got a loan on my name only. I don't know why, but the First Pennsylvania Company in 1947 gave me a loan of $25,000, which at that time was a lot of money. And I had been doing business with him since '45, and my father before that. But they gave me that loan on my name only, and I took it, and I had this building put up, and we worked with a contractor. I had a couple of men that were working for me, get jobs with him so we could do it faster, and I worked with him also. And we got a new building put up, and then we took off from there. Instead of a wooden press, we used to have wooden presses that would bale paper and cardboard. I got an electric press where you push the button, and it did it, and it was completely modernized. I really built the place up, and.
But when we got married, which is a very interesting story, our wedding was set for September the 7th.
Before we get to the wedding,
I don't know if I want that in there, hon.
What were the circumstances around the engagement? How were you proposed to?
Oh,
I didn't have anything, and
nothing.
And I had nothing. I'll tell you a story. My mother didn't particularly care for Anne at the time. As most Jewish mothers, no girl was good enough for their son.
I didn't have
this was a Jewish trait. And she was trying to get me to stop. So they sent me to Red Bank, New Jersey to stay with my brother for a couple of weeks, hoping in the meantime I wouldn't have a relationship or talk to her or anything else. So I got up there, and after a week passed, they took me to the movies in Asbury Park, and I couldn't take it anymore. So I got out, I snuck out, and I went to a payphone. And I called her on the phone.
Before cell phones.
Oh, before anything. And I called her on the phone, and I asked her mom where she was, and guess where she was? She was out with one of my best friends. I got pissed off. But anyhow, I got in the car the next day, and I came back home. And I went right to her house. And from then on, they couldn't keep us apart.
Yeah.
And then my mother decided, well, there's no sense. So she gave me the money, and she went down to Dubrow's on South Street, 7th and South, and helped me pick out a ring to buy for her for an engagement ring. And I don't remember the circumstances under which I gave it to her.
You put it in the cedar chest.
Oh, because I get a cedar chest before we were engaged.
My mother had gotten me a cedar chest, and she invited his parents to dinner. And then we went upstairs
That
to
was a big
look.
step back then.
Oh.
You invited the parents, right?
Oh my God, that was like, and getting a cedar chest is like.
A cedar chest, if you know what it is, it's a chest about this size with a top on it like a locker, but it was inside was all cedar wood.
And it was like a gadilla
and you could
for
store things.
a young girl. It's like her bridal
Pre-marriage.
things, pre-marriage. The mother
Towels,
would buy
linens.
towels and sheets and aprons and
Everything for a young married woman.
For a young woman, so she should have like it's like part of her dowry. So it's like a big deal when your mother and father had that ready for you. So we went upstairs and opened to show his mother the things that I had in my dowry, and there was the engagement ring sitting in there.
Okay.
It was in the case.
So from then on, the war had broken out, the Second World War in 1941. And
We had Lynn in 19.
Lynn was in 42. We got married in 41.
She was cute as hell.
And there was
Till
conscription.
Rex came to see her sitting on the sofa.
Yeah, my manager, what happened, I left my father, I went to work in at Thornton Fuller's at 34th and University Avenue. They were doing, building trucks for the Army. And so I went there having a daughter already just about a year old. I didn't want to be taken in right away. And I didn't want to be taken in at the time. My brother was in for 5 years and he had volunteered. It started to bother me because he went in, but I had a wife and a child. He wasn't married when he went in, I don't think. And
No, he wasn't.
I went to work for Thornton and Fuller, and instead of going into 1A, which was
3A, I think they put you after.
1A, which was immediate conscription because they pulled numbers. And if you were in an early number, single, young, or whatever, you were gone. So while I was working there, my mother heard that they were pulling the guys in, the kids in for the service, and she called us from wherever she was in the mountains. She said, Norman, I want you to go get married. We were supposed to be married in September in the Jewish faith, and everything had been planned, but she wanted me to get married before, so I would be in
3A.
3A instead of 1A, which pushed it back a little bit, hoping the war would be over sooner. In the meantime, I had gone to work at Thornton Fuller. I had been there maybe 6 months, 8 months, and they called me up.
Well, I wonder if the cute thing
Go ahead.
is that his manager, he invited him to dinner at our 2x4 apartment. And we dressed Lynn up. She was like 8, 9 months
She was
old.
8 year old, I think.
Yeah, and we dressed her up, pitched her up, and we put her on the sofa against the pillar. And we were so proud of her. We just wanted to show off. And the manager came and, he thought she was so cute. And he did a big deal. He rolled up $1 and he stuck it in her hand. We thought it was so wonderful, $1. Now my grandchildren, I think if they saw $1 on the floor, they wouldn't even stop to pick it up. But I'll never forget that when we thought, it was so wonderful. He put $1 in her little hand.
We bought one piece of furniture at a time. We couldn't afford any more at the time when we moved to our little apartment.
We got a table.
And every
with
time
a-
we bought a table, I had a little truck, and that's what we used to go around. And every time we bought one piece of furniture, we thought it was a big deal.
Yeah, we
It
bought
was
a
really
table, and then we didn't have the lamp for it. So then when we bought the lamp, we didn't even buy the bulb. So the next week we were able to buy a bulb. We used to lay on the floor and read the paper in our little apartment. And the bedroom was like this. Here was the bed, here was the crib, and there was the bureau. Not as far over, that's how close everything was. And
The shower was in the bathtub with a ring and a curtain around it.
yeah, with the
It's unbelievable.
the tub with legs. And guess what? I tell my grandchildren, your fancy grandmother, how about she used to stand over the tub with a washboard and wash your mother's diapers. I used to wash Lynn's diapers. They came out with diaper service, but we couldn't afford
Years
that.
after.
We didn't even have a phone in our apartment. When I got my labor pains, he had to run across the street and wake the people up at the candy store to use their phone. So could you imagine? And now their phone, every half inch, there's another phone. And
If you want to break it for a minute and want to see what I looked like when I was 25, it's right on the
we'll have
wall there.
pictures. I think we're gonna have pictures.
would you like a cold drink?
No, I'm good. We'll stop and take a little break in 20 minutes.
Yeah, on 20 minutes. It's Christ, I'll fall asleep. in 20 minutes.
Now,
Well, we're up to how about,
What?
so that was dating.
yeah.
Oh.
That was the dating process and the engagement. How about your wedding day?
Oh, well,
It was rough those days.
the
High hat and tails.
yeah. Well,
High hat and tails, we got married.
his mother told him to go get married, and my mother wanted to kill me because everything was all arranged. But we did. We went to Yerkes, and we were married
In
in
Upper
English,
Darby.
in Upper Darby, in English.
Well, by
I think your
Majesty.
mother came
By
home,
Majesty, right.
and she went with us.
No,
to the
nobody
wedding,
went with
no.
us.
And didn't mean anything because they watched us like hawks. Norman always says a joke. He says, yeah, we fixed them. In those days, you had to be married by a rabbi to even think of sleeping together. Today, you don't have to be married. You don't have to.
Married?
You don't even have to be married.
I should be 12 years old.
So,
Anyhow.
and that was July the 22nd, which was just a few days ago. That was our true anniversary. But our wedding was set for September the 7th, and my mother would have killed me if we didn't go through with that. I had the bridal gown, the bridesmaids, the whole catered with the orchestra, top hat and tails, and the whole works.
Now I'll give you a background of the wedding.
Yeah.
When we were getting dressed, on September the 7th, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
No, that's not our wedding. That's
Oh, no, excuse me. That went along all right.
no.
But we had a social group,
fraternity.
a fraternity more or less, where there were about 7 or 8 of us, and each and every one of us were going steady with a girl at the time, and we used to meet each other once a week at a different house, and we used to go out together all the time. And we were the first one in our group to get married. The next
First
one,
to get engaged. I was the youngest.
right. And then the second one, Charlie Vogel and Dottie decided to get married on September the 7th.
December the 7th.
December the 7th, if you remember that date and what it was. Now we're getting dressed because we were all ushers at each other's weddings. And we're getting dressed about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and while we were getting dressed, there was no television, and it was radio.
Television.
On the radio came, the
Pearl
Japs
Harbor.
just bombed us at Pearl Harbor. And it was all hell.
Never
While we were
forget that
getting
day.
dressed, of course, we were listening, and everybody was going crazy. We got to the wedding, I think it was the 39th and Chestnut at the Pennsylvania,
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. While we're right after the ceremony, over the loudspeakers, anybody that's attached to a unit or isn't, please immediately come to camp right away. So that wedding was pretty well messed up.
Was
Every one of the
very-
guys in our little fraternity went into the service eventually. One got his head beat up badly, and
He had a plate in his head. No. Another one lost a lung. But
we were through
that
some
night
exciting
was
times.
such a memory. That night, and we were only married a couple months.
Yeah, September. We were married
Yeah.
in December. The war broke out.
But we had a big
and it was
wedding
tough.
at September the 7th. There were 200 people invited to the wedding. All his friends were our ushers. My 2 best friends were maid of honors. And his brother, who was making a nice living, decided he would give us wedding albums had just come out, and they were expensive. So it was like a big deal. He gave us as a gift the wedding album, which we later lost, which upset me no how. When we moved here, it was lost somewhere along the line. But those times were so different. And when the bride, the groom used to come at the time to the house of the bride. And I don't know if he remembers it, but I remember
distinctly.
this. And my parents had the store, so everybody on the street was lined up on both sides of the store waiting for the bride to come out. And the limousine, well, a girl from South Philadelphia with a limousine, it was hoo-ha. And when I walked out, Norman got lost in the shuffle. I don't know where he was.
I had my eye on another girl.
He was way back in my mother's living room. We're walking through. No, Norman, everybody is shuffling around. All of a sudden, you hear a voice from the reel. Excuse me, can I go too? It was him. So they opened up the space and they let him go through. And we went to, got into the limo. And I don't know if has too much, but something interesting happened a few years ago, sitting out here at the pool. I was talking to one of my neighbors, and I said to her, my anniversary is in a few days. The place where I wanted to be married was taken when we went there. Why? They had in the ballroom a flight of steps. And when the bride was ready, the doors would open and the bride would be at the top of the steps and it would be magnificent. My mother took me to the place to get the place and it was taken. I cried.